Welcome everybody to the 13th webinar with the AVO webinar series. We have my friend James on the other screen. What's up, James?
What's up, brother? How you doing, everybody?
Good, good. So James, just so you know, when we talk, our screen goes live. When we're not talking, people can't see us. And I wanted to welcome everybody back to the AVO webinar series. As you guys probably know, my name's Alex. I'm the founder of AVO. And yeah, these webinars are really meant to share practical and tactical skills that you guys can use when doing outreach. And recently we've had some amazing guests that have provided a lot of different insight, and I'm excited to talk to James. I don't think James needs much of an introduction. I'm sure most of you guys know about his work. So James, I'm just going to start off, like we have about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm just going to start off with some questions for you, bro. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Okay.
Sure.
So first of all, when this webinar was announced, I started receiving messages from people, very, very positive messages, really excited that you were going to be on the webinar. And people were saying that you were a big influence on them, that you either were an influence on them to go vegan or to become active. And
Wow.
I guess my first question to you is, when did you realize, when did you kind of notice that you had this ability to motivate people and inspire people to be vegan and to be active?
Well, I think I had the knowledge of how to inspire people to do things that a lot of the time they didn't really want to do from being a personal trainer for so many years. Actually, just I was that kind of person. I always used to want to, you know, when I was growing up, I got my black belt. I was in karate from 6 years old to like 15 years old. And even when I was young, I think I was probably 12, I was teaching the adult class there. So that gave me like a lot of discipline and a lot of just ideas about motivating people to work hard and things like that. Then again, later when I became a personal trainer, I was constantly trying to teach people how to do things they didn't really want to do. They didn't really want to eat healthy. They wanted to eat junk. They didn't really want to exercise. They wanted to chill. And just trying to get them to realize, no, actually, this is what you'd prefer to do. And you'd be so much happier if you just did this. You know, you're holding yourself back here kind of thing. And then when I started learning about veganism and animal rights and things like that, it seemed pretty simple to me that people generally have a long list of excuses or objections or questions. And until we get through their list of those things, then people are going to have reasons in their mind not to change, not to become vegan or to be active or whatever it is. So for me, it just seemed like, okay, well, basically, you know, just like I'd also learned through a bit of sales stuff when I was working on cruise ships as a personal trainer. That was a lot more sales based. And yeah, that's sort of where I learned that. And it just, when I started adopting that to talking about animal rights, and I saw people changing. You know, like I remember the first speech I ever gave was after the Year of Silence. So I knew that I could sort of put whatever I wanted out there, but it was very perfectly curated when I would type it in the blog I was writing every day for the Vow of Silence. And, you know, you can put out whatever message you want. But when I did my first speech and people came up to me after and they said, oh, wow, that was so good, I'm going vegan. And I was like, oh, man, why are you going vegan? Like, what was your story kind of thing? And they go, well, no, I'm going vegan because I just listened to your 1 hour speech on veganism and now I want to go vegan. That's the whole thing. And I'm like, what? Oh, my God, I have a speech. I thought it was going to take me over a year to craft some sort of Gary Yourofsky style speech to hopefully go. That was my next plan, to like go do speeches. I thought maybe I'd be okay because I'd had a bit of practice on cruise ships. And after my first speech of me just telling my story, people, it worked. I was like, oh my God, that must have done what it needed to do for you to get through all your crap and go vegan. Sweet. And then I also started doing one for activists, for vegans to become activists. And they're the two main things I've focused on ever since. So yeah.
Like, as you know, the AVO focus and kind of the people that follow the AVO webinar series are looking for skills and things that they can implement in one-on-one conversations. And man, I think your speeches are phenomenal. You're such a great public speaker. And you know, the people that are activists might not have as many opportunities to have, you know, speeches in front of crowds.
Sure.
But we all, I mean, even yourself, like I'm sure can't even imagine the ratios, but the number of one-on-one conversations versus speeches is much higher, right? So when you're
Yeah.
thinking about your background as, you know, a little bit of sales, as a personal trainer, you know, as a coach, and coaching is a big component to what AVO, kind of the AVO framework. Can you think of some specific skills that you learned, that you picked up from personal training or sales? And I think maybe personal training specifically, that you now implement when you speak to people one-on-one about veganism and animal rights?
For sure, yeah. Well, I try to definitely focus on the pain of what is being caused, and then also the pleasure of the benefits. I think it's also really important to build rapport with somebody. It almost seems like, who cares about that? Let's skip that part. I just want to tell you the facts, and that should be enough. But when it comes to effectively communicating, and also when it comes to creating behavior change, it's really good if the message comes from somebody who they trust, who they like. That's why I always try to say, be the best vegan you can be. Don't just be vegan, like that's good, but also try to be a positive person, try to be a compassionate person, try to walk the talk, and be a healthy, happy example, because that is just what people want to vibe with. If that's how they view vegans as well, this really great, happy bunch, like who are really passionate still, but also who can have good lives and, you know, other things that I want in my life, then I think that's a really powerful message that sticks with people. So when I talk to people, no matter who it is, no matter what kind of crap they're giving me, I'm trying my best, and maybe I'm not always perfect at this, but I'm trying my best to come from a place of love and compassion. I'm trying to love this person. I'm trying to see them as somebody who is just brainwashed, honestly, is how I look at it. Like, whatever you're saying, you're just brainwashed to think that it's okay to kill some and not others, and that I disagree with. And so I never sacrifice the message. I don't think you ever have to do that. You can be so real about what's going on and what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. But if you do that from a place of love, like this morning, I basically called a guy a murderer. I was calling him a murderer. He loves moose hunting, he was telling me. And I was just doing what I always do, you know, and just basically saying, yeah, I don't like moose hunting at all. I think that is so cruel and wrong, because you're taking the life of somebody against their will, and that is murder. I really think that's a bad thing to do, man. I don't think anybody in our society, any good people like us, should be involved in something so violent and that causes so much suffering and kills somebody. You know, we should be trying to respect and protect, not cause any unnecessary harm. But man, by the end of it, he was just so happy because he knew, like, I went so hard. This is an older surfy guy, you know, who'd lived on Hawaiian Island for 30 years. And he mentioned culture and things like that. And I said, you know, even culture is no reason to do these things. Basically what I'm trying to say is, you never, even culture, because that's one that in the past I've been a little bit scared to touch on. Like, oh, maybe I should just, that's their culture, I don't really know. But it's always about the victim. It's always about speaking from the victim's point of view, and their point of view trumps culture, trumps taste, trumps everything. So
James,
but you can do all that. You can do all that. One sec. You can do all that and be so stern and so real. But if you are talking to this person as your friend and someone that you care about, genuinely care about, and someone who you'll still listen to their perspective, you still listen to what they've got to say, and let them say their whole thing, and then just respectfully disagree, that goes such a long way too.
A lot of people, I think in principle, they would agree with what you're saying, right? I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here, right? But
Sure.
you know, when they think about it, especially activists that are hyper aware, they've seen Earthlings and Dominion, or they've been to slaughterhouses at vigils, or they've been inside of slaughterhouses and seen what happens. I think some people struggle with, you know, being all positive and good vibes and love-based, because all they think about and all they see is all these victims, right? So I guess my first question for you, I have a few questions about this, but my first question for you is, did you always feel the way you do now? Or has that changed? Have you kind of developed this way of thinking and acting?
Yeah, you're so right, man. And I'm not perfect at this either. Sometimes maybe it is better to be angry and this and that, just to like startle people. Sometimes people kind of need a backhand with the vegan message, you know, just to wake them up out of it. But I'll say this, in my experience, maybe, maybe everybody's different or whatever, but in my experience, that's never been a better way. I've never reached someone in a more profound and impactful way being like that. And yeah, so to answer your question, I used to be very different about it. I used to emulate people who I'd seen before me in their activism, who were more stern and aggressive and like calling these people out, but not in a way of, oh, I understand that you're just born in a society that's done this, but just calling them out directly as you, the murderer, not, oh, society conditioned you to believe that this type of murder is okay, but just in a more direct way, not necessarily a bad thing at all. But anyway, I tried to emulate that, and I just wasn't having the results that I felt were worth all the effort I was putting in. And I just wondered, I hoped, like, maybe there's a better way, because I'm trying all day long. I'm in countless conversations online with people trying to debate veganism, why I should go vegan. And a lot of them are just ending really badly, and it's not really helping. And I don't feel like I'm getting the results I should be getting with all this effort. And then I spoke to my friend about it, and she said, why don't you just try it your way? I've never really known you to be like you are in these arguments. You're kind of a bit of an asshole, like you're a bit aggressive, and I don't know, I wouldn't want to listen to you, sort of thing. I thought, all right, I'll just try it my own way. And then I had an opportunity to do it straight away, because I said, all right, catch you later. I went inside I was starting to be a personal trainer again after the year of silence. And I went in and someone offered me a brownie. And before I would have kind of gone hard on them about what's in a brownie and, like, nah. And then I was just, I just educated them. I told them why I love brownies, but not non-vegan brownies. And here's why. And next thing you know, there's a few of them watching my YouTube video. And I take a photo and I send it to my mate. They're all crowded around the computer. And I was like, holy shit, it works. Experience. I started trying to, it's so easy to go down to this level of having a fight and argue with somebody. And, it makes you feel good sometimes, because you just get to let loose and make someone feel like shit, because you kind of feel like shit because you maybe don't have the words to get through to them. And, if you just had the right words or the right approach, you probably could do it. But lack of knowledge or lack of skill or lack of, like being switched on in the moment or whatever it is, like there's so many opportunities, and you want to take every single one because it's so important that you do it. But
it's funny, coming from a sales background, there were tons of times, right? If you can imagine working in sales, you're getting rejected all the time, you're getting treated badly, whatever, and you had to be so careful not to let that out in the moment when you're in this conversation with a potential customer. And then I remember that you always had to make sure that you were going to your buddies, to your mates, after the fact, and venting, so it's natural. I think it's natural for us to feel these feelings of frustration when we can't get through to people. But then the question is, where do we release that frustration? Because you have to let it go, my learnings taught me that if I can talk to, friends of mine, other activists, and vent, right? Talk about how ridiculous it is, how stupid it is, and then kind of put your game face back on and be, and it sounds,
totally. That's good advice.
And it's like, I've been accused, of lots of things, but of being like fake, and
right.
I don't think it's fake to try to manage your emotions, especially when your goal is to help the other person, right? Like you were saying, people are conditioned, right? Yeah, you're just, exactly. So you're trying to help somebody else.
Using the best skills you've got.
Yeah. How do you help them in the best possible way? Which in turn, obviously, if they go vegan, obviously it helps so many things, right? But here's a question for you. Here's a bit of a tough one for you.
Oh, well, just let me finish that last point.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So I just want to say that, like, it is easy to go down to that level, but there's something different about not responding to bullshit and not responding to people's hate and people's bickering and people's condescending attitude. There's something to just being solid and rising above that and finding in between all of the shit that people throw at you, in between, what really are you objecting to here? What part of it don't you understand? And amongst all the name calling and the attitude, there's a little something for you to work with. And you can respond to all the name calling and this and that, or the attitude, or you can have your best attitude on, you can have the most positive vibes, and you can only respond to the little nugget of objection that they had, whether it's plants or whether it's crop deaths or whether it's B12 or whatever it is. And that's how you get through that shit. And when you work on that vibe, when you are being your best self, people just lose their attitude and they want to rise up to and be their best self and have an actual conversation with someone who's respecting them. And that's what I found to be so much more effective. So I stuck with that and tried to hone that skill as best as possible, because I was trying the other way. It wasn't working for me. I was seeing so much better results with this. People were leaving conversations after I've dropped every truth bomb I can think of. And then they're shaking my hand and being like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you yet, but for damn sure you're a lot closer than you were yesterday. And then you leave with new friends, you know, and it's all about like just increasing the pace, because veganism, you know, it's many levels, and obviously it's not an exploitation of animals, but I think it's also, we got to be our best selves to other humans, to other human animals. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's just a part of it, like evolving ourselves to be non-reactive and compassionate, you know, as many times as possible.
Can you think of a time? So even though I know we always try our best, right, to do what you're saying, to be love-based and peaceful with other people, with non-vegans as well. Yeah. But can you think of a time where maybe you received some hate or somebody just, I don't know, drove you to a point where you couldn't control yourself and you reacted in a negative way?
Oh yeah, there's lots of times, man. You know, like lots of times when my ego just gets the better of me and I'm just like, instead of saying something encouraging, I'll just say something belittling, you know, where I could have just been the bigger person, but in that moment I'm like, nah, can't be bothered with you. And then I just think, okay, that was just lazy and I shouldn't have done that. A better thing to do is for the animals. And like I said, it's not necessarily always, like this is just a general rule for me. It's not always better to be nice and loving and things like that. You know, for example, like Carly Stevenson just sent some love to the activists in BC who were doing Meet the Victims today. Yeah. Respect to all of them. And if you're there and there's a farmer there, you know, maybe it's not necessarily, if you can get your point across, and maybe it's not in the most loving, most respectful way, because this is a little bit more direct. And this also could be the footage that goes viral because it's a bit more confrontational and this and that. And that's also something to consider, because you have to weigh it up. Okay, maybe it wasn't my best approach. And a video that I put out that I didn't think was my best at all was my vegan versus Christian discussion, where I kind of lost it at the guy a little bit, which I don't usually do. And that got over 1 million views. So when I put it up, I wasn't expecting it to get many views at all, because I thought I did kind of shit. Mm-hmm. And that's something to consider too, you know, that, yeah, like there's a certain amount of strategy we put into a one-on-one because of the individual that we're talking to, but also a certain amount of our strategy needs to go to, yeah, but will this type of conversation go viral? And what might make it go a bit more viral is if there is a bit more drama. So yeah, like it's just other things to consider.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on, I'm a big believer in nonviolent direct action, you know, any sort of slaughterhouse takeovers, meet the victims, anything like that. And I think that's where, you know, I'm a big fan of, and I'm sure you are too, Martin Luther King and Kingian nonviolence and his approach to activism, which was like super direct and what I like to say, like hard on the problem, but soft on the people. You know, he still recognized that people were products of their conditioning. And so he managed to still show love to his oppressors. And in our case, obviously they're not our oppressors, even though sometimes it feels like that if people are picking on us for being vegan. But realistically, I mean, it's the non-human animals that are being, you know, obviously oppressed badly.
Of course. Of course.
Maybe
well, it's happening to humans in different ways as well too. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. On the flip side, can you think of like a specific example? And I thought you might bring up that Christian versus vegan example for the kind of losing your temper. Can you think of an example, maybe a recent example of a time where you felt that anger and that frustration, but you managed to kind of overcome it and respond in a positive way that actually led to positive results?
Totally. Well, even this morning, man, you know, when someone is directly saying to you that they enjoy moose hunting, and you're sort of starting to explain the ethical dilemma behind that, and then they're just saying, oh, well, I just like meat and this and that. Like, of course, feelings are going to come up. They're going to be kind of hard to deal with. But for me, this has become such an everyday practice now that it sort of just happens naturally. But it did take a lot of practice for it to happen in this process. And now what basically it is when this sensation comes over me of anger or frustration or whatever, I feel it as soon as it comes. It just enters into my body, like in my chest or wherever, and I just observe it and acknowledge it, and just remember where I'm trying to come from in this conversation. So, for example, with this guy this morning, I really was just sharing it in the most direct way I could, but also with not a tone, not a trace of animosity towards this person. It was all the passion, but it wasn't actually directed at him. It was just directed at, I don't like the act of violence against animals, and here is why. But not against you as a person, because you're probably an awesome guy. You just don't realize what you're doing is horrifically wrong.
Yeah, it's probably something that you bring from your background before being an activist, which is the ability to build rapport with people, right? And to make sure that people understand that, especially if you're trying to coach them, for example, in personal training, I'm sure they need to have that. They need to feel that connection from you. They need to feel that you are on their side, right? That you're trying to help them. You're not working against them, right? Even though you might be challenging them.
Totally. You want them to walk away like really feeling like that was a meaningful conversation in their life. Like this person came and delivered this message to me, and they were a cool person too, and it was all love, and they had something really serious to say, and then they just pieced out, and I just kept thinking about it, and I had really good vibes about it because they weren't hating on me. It was all love, but it was a serious message that really made me stop and think. And that's how people change, man. Just hearing the other side of the story. Sorry, bro, you cut out for a second.
Yeah, it was a little choppy there.
I personally haven't found any times recently that anger has been better. And every time I have the opportunity to come from that good place, that's always my go-to. Yeah, there's no times where I think, maybe anger would be better in this conversation. I personally haven't had an experience like that I don't even know.
Mm-hmm. I remember your story going vegan. It was someone that told you, it was one of those conversations that lasted in your mind. It was somebody told you that eating animals is bad karma, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what stuck with you, is that little like vegan grenade that kind of went off in your head and ended up, so my question is, why don't you have a t-shirt that says that?
Yeah, I know. I really should. I've thought about that before. I've got a vegan karma, but that would be a really cool shirt. I'll work on it. So yeah, I think that's a good message, man. Even though people don't necessarily believe in karma, it just gets people thinking, fuck, yeah, that maybe it is, because killing is very bad. Like,
I got another tough question on deck for you. So
cool.
I feel like there's a bit of a division in the activism world. People that are like very much for love-based activism, and people who are very much against it. And I made a post recently talking about how I don't hate slaughterhouse workers, and anyway, just kind of talking about this love-based approach. And I've actually never received more hate in my life.
Wow!
After that post, I got like attacked by vegans, by activists who don't believe in a love-based approach. So my question to you is, how would you respond to someone who basically told you that you were taking the side of the oppressor if you advocate in a non-violent, love-based way? How would you respond to someone that said that?
Yeah. I don't think so, because I just think it's the best strategy to get to a vegan world for me as an individual. I don't disagree with other approaches. I think that they are all probably necessary, and there's so much urgency, and we all feel it in different ways and respond in different ways that we think we're best at. Like, some people I know aren't going to be that great at doing speeches, and I'm not that great at organizing festivals. Like, we all got our skills. But I think that I just believe in it because I see it work over and over and over again, my inbox every single day. So if it didn't work, I'd try something else. But when I'm constantly seeing people going vegan and becoming activists from me doing it in this approach, then, well, I've got all the evidence that I need really right there. And I have other ways in the past tried that weren't as effective. So that's where I'm going from. But if other people are having great results by being really direct and doing different direct action, this and that, awesome, man. I support that wholeheartedly, because that has an effect too, a really important, powerful effect of making this a very serious issue in a very obvious way for the mainstream.
Do you see those two as separate things? Like, can you not be love-based and nonviolent in direct action?
I think you can do both for sure. And I think both are totally necessary and just different ways up the same mountain. We're all trying to get to the vegan world, you know? So, I really try not to criticize much at all, because I honestly just feel like, I don't know. A lot of people criticize all the events that happened in Melbourne because it was kind of negative publicity, the way the media spun it. But I was just like, how do you know what kind of seeds were planted in the whole country? Like, even if you were the best psychologist around, I still would question it, because I think there's a merit that we can't all understand. It's not always just about this person saying, oh, that made a lot of sense, I'm going to go vegan. It's also about the disruption in their normal and a big, serious, synchronized stunt. You know, like, there's all these different ways of why this will positively impact people. So yeah, I really don't understand. I never try to discount anything I see. I used to be a little bit like that. I used to think, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know, that's a bit extreme, or this and that. And you know, maybe I still won't do certain things. And that's for my own strategic reasons of trying to be a relatable person, which has gone a long way for me to this point in regards to helping people. And so I'm just really careful what I personally choose to participate in. But that doesn't mean I don't support all forms. You know, I think there's so many ways to do it, and they're all really important. And because, you know, like, so much time I have spent arguing with other vegans, and it is just a waste of time. Like, there's things to be learned, there's lessons to be learned for sure, but honestly, there's so much time goes towards just negative crap amongst vegans. And yeah, that's precious time that could be spent to helping, you know, unite and help other people go vegan, which is a far more important topic. So yeah, I don't know. I think, look, it's all valid and it's all good, and people just need to feel what they think is the best thing for them to do and go and do it and do something. And if you're not sure what the best thing for you to do is, you know, just try it, put your toe into this one, try this, try that, try some different things, or think about what skills you've got and utilize them to the fullest, and just try to make it as much of a priority in your life as you can. And so many people doing that leads, you know, it goes such a long way. And that's what we're seeing now with so many different forms of activism, so many different people making cheese and events happening and all this stuff. Like, it's just really, really blossoming.
Martin Luther King spent, I think it was something like 70% of his time dealing with infighting within the movement, and only 30% actually, like, you know, pushing the movement forward. I mean, he had to deal with infighting.
That's crazy.
Go apart, but I'm with you, man. I'm with you. There's so much time spent. If you go into vegan groups, and I try to stay away from them, you know, but you go into vegan groups online, it's just people arguing with each other. And it's like, man,
a lot of the time,
if you want to spend half an hour online, you know, I'm not a big fan of, I say big fan of, I shouldn't say that. I don't feel that I'm terribly effective in online activism, going into like having conversations online. Every once in a while, I'll dip my toes in, like you're saying, but I tend to stay away from it because of how time consuming it is and kind of bang for your buck type of thing. But if you want to spend time online, go do that. You know, go put a positive post on some post that needs it, as opposed to bashing other vegans and vegan groups. Like, I don't, and like I said, like, I agree with you 100%. I don't judge. I would never say that one way is better than the other. Everyone should go out there and figure out what the most effective thing is for them, and stop criticizing people. Like, what's the, you know, provide feedback.
Yeah, you can give feedback. Sure. Absolutely. That's great. I appreciate that a lot. But yeah, there's a difference, and, you know, it's just a distracting thing. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. Like, I just feel there's so many people on the job now that this is an inevitable thing. I just think that if we all feel we can do them to the table and just be consistent, keep doing it in our own way, everything's just going to happen faster. But I feel so positive right now about just the direction that it's all heading. It feels like a really good time for the animal rights movement for sure.
Mm-hmm. The title of this webinar is From Enemies to Friends. So one thing that I wanted to explore with you, maybe, I think we've touched on it for sure with the last few questions, but what's a way that if someone comes at you, let's say you're at an event, let's say you're at a vigil or something like that, and somebody comes at you with hate, with anger, how would you handle that situation in order to try and do what you've done, I think, so many times, which is take someone from that place of anger and hate to at least a place of understanding, and maybe you can have a connection with them. But what are some things that you would share that you've done or that you try to do?
Well, yeah, I just really make sure I don't take it personally, what their feelings are towards me or towards vegans or towards animals. So yeah, someone throwing something at me like that, I just straight away, my first thing is opportunity. Whoa, someone's got bad vibes on vegans. I'm going to go and like mess that all up for them. So I just said it's a great opportunity to be like, okay, what are their problems with vegans? They think we're really annoying and they think that we're wrong. So I'll be up there and I'll just, like, that'll be in my head. Okay, they think that we're annoying. That's the vibe I got from what he said, and they think that we're wrong. That's the vibe. And then I'll go up and try to just be so the opposite of that. Like, I'll be so chill and just like really cash, just whatever it is. Or they think we're aggressive. I'll be so peaceful and, just try to mess that, like short circuit that belief they've got. And if they think we're really wrong, I'll just be like, oh, I'm totally open to hearing your side of the story. I'm open to hearing. Maybe there's something there for me to learn too, but I'll tell you my side and we can have a discussion about it. So yeah, just really not taking it personally, because it's so easy to do that. And you're already such a feeling of urgency and you want everyone to get it straight away, and it's frustrating. So much patience with people, because people are asking these questions for the first time. They're getting their answers for the first time. There's so much that people's heads are filled with, so much about who they do think vegans are and who they think animals are or that they're not, and what happens, the whole process, and how necessary it is to eat animal products. And their heads are just filled with so much garbage. So you really have to have patience with their cutting through all their objections. You could be there all day with somebody and they're still not going to change, even though factually it makes sense and they're even agreeing, but they're still just hung up on, but I just like meat though. And, you just need all the patience in the world to just continue responding and keeping it up at that cool level. And I just try to talk to people, like my family, honestly. I just see humans as my extended family, and something really bad's happening, I just want everyone to know. And, so I'm just calm and patient and compassionate. And look, if there's someone young, I'm trying to be cool. And if there's someone a bit older, maybe, for example, I'm trying to be a bit more respectful. I'm just trying to, look at my audience as well and just try to relate to them and, maybe mirror their body language a little bit, just talk like them a little bit, not push too hard, like really try to, just feel the experience basically, and just be really as socially competent as I can, and I guess like the more you do it, the more you can just sort of hone your skill and just get out there. And you don't need to be worried about getting out there, even if you're not really used to this kind of thing, because there's so many opportunities that come up every day that, you can just start by putting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. And someone mentions something about eggs and you just say one little fact, and you could be at the shops and someone's buying milk and you say, oh, have you ever tried soy milk? It's actually so much healthier. And I don't know if you know what happens in the dairy industry, but it's actually really, really disgusting and actually so cruel. Boom, fact. Anyway, but just something to think about. I stopped drinking dairy as soon as I found all that stuff out. Move on. Like, you don't need to give them the whole vegan spiel.
Mm-hmm.
You can just drop a little thing. And that's another thing. I think that vegans really have this feeling of pressure. Like, we have so much work to do, and you find someone then that you start doing some work, but sometimes the best thing to do isn't to just keep grilling them and drilling them with facts. Sometimes it's just better to be like, just feel it, be like, okay, I feel like I've said enough to you, and if I keep talking, I'm just going to be seen as annoying by you, and I'm going to weigh it up. And I think the best thing to do now is just to walk away and let you think about what we've discussed. Yeah.
I think what I really take from what you're saying there, and I love hearing it. It's basically the first step of the AVO framework, which is building trust and credibility. And a lot of people get frustrated that they have to do that. It's like, I shouldn't have to, I shouldn't have to adjust my message for other people. It's like, it's kind of like they put the
Right.
responsibility on the other person to like just accept the message. And it's like, man, when you take on, the way I look at it is, when you take on the role of an activist, when you take on the role, especially if you're going to outreach, if you're going to talk to people about this, well, what's the point of it? And the point of it for me is, you want to inspire this person to think differently, to open their mind, to hopefully go vegan, watch a documentary, try a challenge, whatever, right? So, if we're adopting that role as a coach, right, then it's like, well, what mindset, what are we thinking about going into that conversation? And for me, number one thing is, you have to have a connection with that person. Like you said, if it's just someone in the grocery store, that positivity when you talk about that smile, you can be talking about the worst shit. Like you said, you could be calling someone a murderer, but you have that smile on your face, and you're very conscious of that rapport, that relationship with that person. And like you said, I don't want to be seen as annoying and pushy if I'm trying to inspire. So sometimes less is more. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. It's tricky to navigate because, like you said, there was a question in the chat that I saw that I'm going to kind of bring up here. People put a lot of pressure on themselves, to solve the entire problem, and it's heavy. And someone in the chat put that they're really frustrated because they can't get through to their family members. And this is a common thing that I'm sure you hear, that I hear all the time. It's like, my family, I can't get through to them. What the hell? Like, it's driving me crazy, right? How do you respond to people who their main pain point, their main pressure on them is that their family isn't vegan?
Yeah, it's a very common thing. You expect it when you go vegan, and you just quickly tell your family, yo, I heard all this stuff, so we're doing it, right? And they're just like, nah, I'm going to still eat meat. Cool information, but it's amazing almost. How can you not care? And I think that, delivery is a big thing, especially if it's your first opportunity. Then I think you're in a good place. So I went in, I'm so glad, I wouldn't change barely anything. It was just after I went vegetarian, and I sat my mum and dad down and said, guys, I've learned something really life-changing, and I think you're going to want to see it as well, because you raised me to be good people, to be a good person. You were both good people, and I've learned something that we've been doing that is very, very bad, very cruel, very wrong, and I've changed. And I would like you to watch the same thing I've watched, if for no other reason than just to understand why I've changed, but also because I think you'll appreciate seeing it with your own eyes too. And when they're like, oh, I don't want to watch animal cruelty, and I was trying to get them to watch Earthlings, they said, well, they said they didn't want to watch animal cruelty. I said, well, you should, because, if you're going to pay for it, then you should at least see don't you owe them an hour and a half of your life? You've been putting this on them for your entire life, for decades. So you at least can't give them an hour and a half of your time to see what they go through because of all your meals. And they're like, fine, put it on. And they watched it. And then straight after, they were like, yeah, that was sad, but we're not changing. And I kind of just went, this is like the first time I've ever tried to get someone to watch Earthlings. So I was like, okay.
What? That doesn't make sense. You watched Earthlings. You should change.
Yeah, like, what is wrong with you people? I was tripping. But then, I was just like, okay, well, I'm glad you watched it. And I was just really confused, but I'm just thinking in my head, whoa, there's some weird psychological stuff at play here, like cognitive dissonance that I didn't really understand at the time. There's so much psychology behind it. So they see all this horrific stuff for an hour and a half that they're contributing to. They're like, yeah, it's sad, but whatever. And I was like, okay. And then the next day, mum had a Big Mac meal. Then she went vegetarian, and then dad went vegetarian a little bit later. And then soon later, mum went vegan and dad went vegan. And then my brother went vegan, and the dog went vegan. So, but I think coming at them from that place of just, hey, I respect you guys so much. And I respect the way you raised me because you did your best, but there's something I learned that's actually wrong, and don't contribute to it anymore. We don't have to. Our world is set up so we don't have to pay for this to happen anymore. And there's no rational reason why we shouldn't. I've looked into it. You're welcome to do your own research, but these are the facts, and let's have a look at it. And not everyone, like some people have already burned their bridges, you know, with family, and they've just gone on too much about it. People are sick of hearing it. They weren't well prepared for the questions they got asked. They kind of lost some credibility, this and that. But and it really is dependent on where you are at currently with your family. But I would suggest that small wins are huge things to celebrate. Any little thing where maybe they got soy milk instead of cow's milk. Maybe they were open to cooking a vegan meal for them. You know, maybe they tried a vegan recipe that you sent, and maybe they watched a documentary. Maybe they watched a 4-minute video or followed someone on Instagram that you recommended, or anything. Like, any small win is definitely to be celebrated.
How would you feel if your family weren't vegan right now? So with all the work that you do, let's say they all just refused. They were like, nope.
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if by this long of me explaining the facts and showing them how easy it is and everything, that they still hadn't gone vegan. So for me, it would just be, it's just a very unlikely scenario, to be honest. That's how I see it, because they're rational people, they're compassionate people. And if they weren't vegan, yeah, I'd find that definitely challenging, man. But again, I know that my job isn't to make them go vegan. My job is to just, okay, so why aren't you vegan still? Like, that's what I'm just asking in my head. So what is it? I know you're pretty solid on this. You see my food, so you know the food's good. You know you enjoy it. So what is it? I'd just be trying to find that whatever thing that's keep holding them back. And my job is just to work with that. Okay, so you've still got this objection. So how am I going to work with that? You don't have enough recipes, so I'm going to stick some recipes up somewhere. I'm going to cook some recipes with you. You know, whatever it is, I'm just going to work on that objection and not be so disheartened. Oh, they're still not vegan. It's been 6 years and they're still not vegan. I'm going to be like, okay, why still aren't you vegan? Here's the reason. Okay, so let's work with this. And then that's boom, crossed out. Okay, so what's the next reason why you're not vegan? Oh, you think that? No. Boom. And just, you know, some people it was still a process for them. Some people it's an overnight process. Some people it's a lifelong mission for whatever reason. But again, it's about finding those reasons and just working with each one. And that's all you can do as an activist. You can't make the whole world go vegan. You can't even make your mum go vegan. But you can address all the lies that they believe and all the myths that they believe and all the things that are stopping them go vegan. You can address all those. And that's what gets people there. When they run out of excuses and they know the food's good and that it's cheaper and that it's healthy, and yeah, they see what happens to animals, and after a while they're just like, why aren't I doing this? I feel like an idiot now. I need to do this. This is good. I'm convinced. I am sold. Sign me up. What's next? But to get to that point, even if they're just stuck on, you know, a couple of excuses, people just want to cling to their old ways. So yeah, you got to really just figure out what they're saying between the lines and work just specifically with that.
You said earlier on, you said a word which always kind of sets off positive alarms for me. Like, it's something I'm very conscious of, that we talk about quite a bit in the AVO webinar series. And I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why people find the family, not one of the biggest reason why people find family conversations the most difficult. And it boils down to ego, right? It's that you guys know each other so well, and you know your mom doesn't want her kid, or your brother doesn't want him, you know, his brother telling him, you've been living your life wrong, right? You raised me wrong. All these things that kind of like quickly just make people defensive. And I think it's so much more important when you're talking to family that you recognize your own ego. Again, you can't change other people. You can't do anything. You can't force people to do anything. I don't even think you can convince people of things. You can only inspire them to think, right? And if you're trying to do that most effectively, man, we got to check our egos. And I was guilty. I know this stuff. I implement this stuff at work all the time. And when I would get home, when I first went vegan, I would just end up in these like arguments and these debates with my family members. And they were so unproductive. And it only I feel like it only pushed them further away from veganism. And then it was only when I eased up, when I like stopped putting pressure, when I started just being nicer to them, you know, and understanding why they weren't vegan, despite the fact that they had seen Earthlings. It was like, then it followed, you know, but it was, I felt like I was actually maybe inhibiting that process. So I think we got to be careful.
It's good just to step back. Yeah. You got to check your ego, man. You got to check your passion a little bit sometimes, just for strategic reasons, because it can come off as a bit aggressive. sometimes, and that can just be enough for people for it to rub them the wrong way, and they just don't like it. Yeah, it's a dance, man. It's a delicate dance, this whole thing. But you can get there, and you just got to, again, like, be patient. Someone said 4.5 years later, my husband still, this is Sue, and my husband still claims his taste buds rule. It's beyond annoying. So for me, I just be like, okay, so I'm just going to get this person to eat the most delicious, the most decadent vegan food and all the vegan meats that I can get, so that they can really enjoy vegan food. And then I'm probably just going to grill them a little bit about the ethics of, your taste buds are more important than those animals' lives, as much as you might think they are. You remember what you're saying. Like, I'm just going to remind you every now and then, because even though I might not talk about this every day, I just want you to know that every time I see you eating meat, I think what you're doing is extremely cruel and wrong. It doesn't suit you at all. The person I married is into animal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But not like, again, it's so situation dependent with where you're at with this person in regards to what kind of conversations you've already had. But yeah, you just stick it out, because people do change all the time. That for 4.5 years they haven't changed, or slaughterhouse workers or hunters. People really, if you just give them that space to do it, and you just can guide them there. And again, celebrate every small win. If your husband has just had one vegan meal here and there, it's like, oh, I really appreciate you having that meal with me. Every vegan meal that you have, it means that someone suffered less, and this benefit and that benefit, and be better for your health. And I just want you to know I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And just like make it a positive experience for them.
For anyone who's either on the chat or watching this after the fact, and if you have that frustration, you feel that frustration that your partner or your family isn't vegan, I think one thing to recognize in what you said, James, is that if you know in your heart, and that person also recognizes that they don't support animal cruelty, right? That they are not the type of person to enjoy watching earthlings, that's all I need to know to be like calm. Because if they liked animal cruelty, there's a big problem, right? And you're not going to get through
them.
But
a totally different kind of person.
But people don't, right? Like most of our family members don't like that. So then it's just when I think about it, just go into coaching mode. There's a whole webinar setup called Powerful Questions that make people go vegan. It's just like, what questions can you ask them so that they're exploring this themselves from their own perspective? It's not me telling you that you're wrong, that this is bad. It's like, they already know this. It's already in here. You just have to be careful not to let your egos block a really productive conversation. That's what generally happens with family members, is egos block productive conversations. And then all of a sudden somebody else talks to them, or they watch a speech by James, and all of a sudden like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You're like, I've been saying that for the past 2 years, right?
Totally.
I have a good story, quick little story. I remember hearing this girl who was sending, every once in a while, she would send a vegan recipe or a vegan article or whatever to her family. Like, they had a group email chat, right? And obviously she wanted her family to go vegan. And every time that she shared something, or maybe not every time, but she was always accused of being annoying and pushy. Yet other people shared all types of other things. But whenever she shared a vegan thing, that was a problem, right? Yeah. So a couple of years go by, and then one day her sister decides to go vegan. So her sister now is going to tell her vegan sister that she went vegan. And she pulls her aside. She says, hey, I have something to tell you. Sister's like, yeah. She's like, I've decided to go vegan, but not because of you. She had to let her know it's not because of you. It's such an ego thing. It's crazy. It's crazy. Wow. So I think,
I've heard that before too, man. Someone said that to me. Yeah, they went vegan. Not because of you. That I'm like, cool. I don't really care why, as long as I do. That's mad.
Yeah. So that's what we have to manage it. I think that when we recognize that ego blocks our family, our friends, the people closest to us, then it's how do we manage our own ego? Anyway, that's
and it really helps. And it really helps to think of them. You are vegan at heart. Okay, maybe you don't get it yet, but they are there in their heart. They're not killers. They're not people who thrive, that enjoy cruelty or causing suffering. That's not them at all. So that's why there's reason to have so much hope in people and so much patience and listening, because unfortunately there is not only decades of conditioning in their own life, but also centuries of conditioning in our culture that we're trying to get through here. And sometimes patience is just what you need. That's what people need on their journey. Some people are overnight, and some people yeah, like it's just different. You can't pick it. And all you can do again is just work with what you know of this person and their sticking point and be the best vegan you can be.
I used to coach a little league baseball team, and I had this guy. His name was Adi, and Adi came from India, and he had, I think he had maybe played cricket once, but he had never picked up a baseball or a baseball bat. And so he was really bad at baseball, and these kids were like 12, 13 years old. So they had grown up playing baseball. So he was way behind, right? And when I think about some people, when you talk to them and they're kind of ready to go vegan, they've already seen a lot of information. They're the kids that have been, playing for a while, and it's not so hard to coach them. But a kid like Addy, it took a lot of time and effort. Like I'd stay after practices with him specifically, put the ball up on a tee, just like you had to start from the basics, right? And it took a lot of patience. But when I think about coaching people to veganism, it's no different. Like if I had yelled at Addy and told him, Addy, how stupid are you? Like, why can't you hit this freaking ball? It's on a tee, man. Like how, it's right there. Is that going to motivate him to want to do that, right? And we have to be careful that we don't let our frustrations get the best of us, I think, when we're trying to coach people. Again, if you want to adopt that approach, I'm big on coaching, right? So if you want to adopt that, you have to check your ego and put in the time and have the patience to actually help someone. And this is so much harder than coaching a kid to hit a baseball. So much harder. Like 30, 60
it's a
years
lot
of
more
conditioning,
work.
right?
Yeah, it's easy to be angry at someone and yell all your crap. Like imagine if I was a personal trainer calling guys who wanted to be stronger weaklings. Like, you're a little weakling. Look at you, like pathetic. What? He's not coming back. He doesn't want to get trained by me, and he's probably put off, like the whole thing. So yeah, it's approach is just as important as what you're saying. I think there's three things. It's what you say, how you say it, and who you are when you say it.
What you're also talking about the little things, like celebrating the little things. It's such a coaching technique. It's not saying that's the end goal, right? Like when you're training someone, if they get 10% to their overall goal, you're going to celebrate that, right? You're going to high five them. You're going to tell them how awesome they're doing.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. But it's not saying we're done now.
I'm like, you kid.
Exactly.
No, when people go vegetarian, back in the day, bro, I would have been like, well, vegetarians still contribute to this and that and so much suffering, blah, blah. But now I'm just like, dude, you went vegetarian. That is awesome. I'm so stoked that you made that step in the right direction. I was vegetarian for a year before I went vegan, and it was a good process for me personally. I wouldn't take that long now. If I knew what I know now about the dairy industry, the egg industry, and about being vegan and what that means for the world, I would have done it overnight. But, I respect that you're on your journey, man. And, going vegetarian is an important part for a lot of people. So good for you. And, just remember, like, being vegan is the least we should do. I had to throw that in because some people get stuck at vegetarian for a while. But, you're on your way, man. And that's a really big part. And congratulations. And if you need any help vegan or you want some recipes or anything like that, just let me know, bro. But respect, keep it up. Like, it's so much encouragement. People are like, whoa, I did a good thing. And I know that person wants me to be vegan, but okay, yeah, I'm on my way. I'm figuring it out.
And they'll turn to you for support if they feel that encouragement, right? And guess what? That person that went vegetarian, whatever motivated that person to be vegetarian, whatever values drove them to do that, just ask them about those values. It'll remind them of why they went vegetarian, and those same values will align with veganism, right? It's like, that's the coaching mindset. It's just helping them figure out, well, why did I do this? Encouraging them, right? Hey, awesome job, man. And it's rare. There aren't that many vegetarians, so good for you. Yeah. And what made you go vegetarian originally, and then just guide them to veganism. Like, it's,
and potentially find out, why didn't you go vegan straight away? Did you think that would be harder? Was there something about that you thought might be extra challenging? Because there's an argument that maybe it's better to just go vegan, because then you don't have to learn two sets of different recipes and ways of eating. You just go one way, and kind of a lot easier, in my opinion, these days. But I just wanted to talk to Sue Ann again. She said that he's listening to us both. And, he's one of the most kind, ethical people she knows. She celebrates everything that he's done so far. He loves her vegan meals, cooks vegan himself, but his friend hunts deer, and there's occasional venison cooked in my house. So that right there, I'm like, okay, so his thing is that he thinks occasionally it's okay, or, it's probably going to get eaten anyway. And you can still, doing a lot is good enough, kind of thing. And so that's the objection I found there, like, that's what I'm looking for. Oh,
Mhm.
so why does he think he doesn't have to be vegan? Maybe he thinks that just a little bit every now and then is good enough. And so then for that person, I'd be like, oh, like every single time that you are consuming that, you are part of that unnecessary violence of the suffering that animal went through. You supported that. You condoned that to your friend.
Mhm.
You added a voice to all the many voices who say that killing animals for food is okay, even though we have other food to eat. You added to the voice of saying that their lives don't matter as much as our taste buds. Even if you just did it once a year, that's one time a year where that's the wrong message. That's saying the wrong thing. That's not okay. That's hurting someone that doesn't have to be hurt by you just being like, no, I don't eat that anymore. I'll have my vegan burger. You try Beyond Meat is delicious, but yeah, even that little bit, you don't get to say that you're vegan when it's just that little bit. You are still eating animal products deliberately. So you can't call yourself a vegan. And that is also a really important word for this time right now. It's important to be a part of the vegan community, to just classify yourself as a vegan. You don't have to, but I think there's so much benefit to doing that because you are representing something. You're representing a revolution, a compassionate, peaceful revolution, a non-violent revolution. You are joining the team and you're breaking the stereotype and you're proving that it can be done and that you don't even need a little bit of meat or a little bit of backyard eggs once a year to be healthy. You don't need any of that. You haven't even meat in a year or 2 years, 5 years. Wow. So I just think that's a really important, be all the way. And just remember that every time you support eating any of those products and put that product of torture or suffering or killing into your body, you're supporting it on many levels. And a good person deliberately avoids that as far as practically possible, at the very least. On top of that, you could try to stop other people causing that harm, because that's an ethical thing to do too. You see suffering and pain happening, you try to stop it. And when you make the connection that suffering, pain happens every time somebody eats an animal product, yeah, then you find ways, which is what we're talking about now, because you feel compelled to speak up for those victims who are going so unseen, even though their bodies are sitting right there.
You know what I found, and I'm looking at Sue-Ann's message in there in the chat, and I see something in there that I think from my experience is the number one thing that actually holds people back from being vegan. And it's often masked or it's hidden in comments like taste and that sort of thing, because we know that a lot of people can enjoy vegan food, and they do. Like Sue-Ann saying her husband cooks it, obviously probably enjoys it. But she said that his friends hunt deer. And what a lot of people I think find is that they don't want to be the weird vegan, right? They don't want to be this weird this little cult. They don't want to be in the cult, right? So a lot of time, and I don't even know if that's a conscious thought often, but I know it's something that holds people back, because we are pack animals. We're like sheep. We want to belong. We don't want people thinking that we're weird, right? Or at least a lot of us. I don't care, but a lot of people do, and even actually I shouldn't say that. To some extent, I still do.
At the start,
yeah. Why do I have Invisalign right now, right? To a certain extent,
totally.
You want to fit in, right? So I think we have to recognize that, and we should, Shannon's saying that sometimes her tone is a bit harsh with them. It's like when you help them recognize what it is that's holding them back, and I'll bet you that's a big one, because I know my friends, when I went vegan, they were calling me, they were making fun of me all the time. They don't anymore. They actually respect it, and they've actually changed a lot.
Of course.
But at the beginning, you got to put up with that. But at the end of the day, I like asking people, like, if you are actually against animal abuse, right, or you're against anything, whatever horrible thing you're against, right, in the world, if someone made fun of you for being against something that you believe is ethically wrong, how would you respond to them? And put them in a situation where they have to respond to their friends because they're against, let's say you were a kid and someone was bullying another kid, and someone made fun of you because you didn't want to bully them. Well, what would you say? Well, when they start figuring out how they can speak to their friends about it, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I guess it just makes it, they feel a little bit more comfortable. So that's another coaching strategy, is kind of like challenge people to think about these things, and maybe they can kind of get over their own objections, So, James,
you did a really good thing there.
Go ahead.
Wait. You did a really good thing there. You found another objection in what she wrote, about just eating it. You noticed I was paying attention to, just every now and then, and I went with that line. You saw also in that there was his friends, and that's probably a social thing. And then another thing that could potentially be taken from what was written there is that he thinks it might be a health thing. He thinks he still needs to eat a little bit of meat. It also could be that he thinks he won't be fully satisfied and enjoy food anymore if he doesn't have some meat sometimes. So I just think that's a really good point, that like you found more there, and there's actually probably, you could unpack that even further. And the smartest thing to do, if you have the time and it's the right situation, is to find as many of them as possible in whatever's said or written, and go through all of them just in case there was any of those, which it probably was, because there are things for everybody, and just unpack all of them if you see that there's potentially more objections than one. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing about getting through it. And yeah, speaking of friends, it's a really big thing, man. I had an interesting situation. The first time that I ever posted an animal rights quote, my first animal rights post ever, before I posted it, I thought about my friend Ryan Easton, who I used to try to get his approval from when we were younger. He was like a really cool guy, and I just wanted his approval when I was in high school. He was a good mate of mine and shit, but anyway. And I hadn't seen him in years. And then just before I posted, I thought about him, like, I wonder what Ryan would think about animal rights and this, and just a weird thought. I hadn't thought about him in years. And then he was one of the first people to like my quote on it, which he never liked any of my stuff back then, you know? And I thought, wow, he just liked that, I think, because he noticed that I was doing something I didn't often do, which was just put my own, something out there, something that I believed in out there to the world. And he just respected that. And I think when you're just real about where you're at, maybe some people make fun of you and shit, like if you've got friends like that, but you can also just joke about it with them. And just like, yeah, you can still be cool with your friends. You can still joke around your friends. You can still just accept those vegan jokes, but also have some jokes to say back to them. Or just, again, don't take it personally, and just be like, yeah, I used to make jokes like that before I was vegan. So you'll get there soon. You're on your way. I can see. I remember making those jokes, and look at me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good reaction. What you just did there. Like, talk about rapport building, at least taking the high road, not reacting negatively. Like, it's tough to do. I know it's tough to do for a lot of people, but try it out and see what type of responses you get, what type of progress you see in your friends and family, So James, brother, I gotta thank you for joining the webinar. I can't believe an hour has gone by already, and I want to give some time to the people who have, there's already 24 questions loaded in the Q&A. So for those of you who are watching this after the fact, so if you're watching it on YouTube or the AVO website, thank you guys for investing time in developing as animal rights activists. I want to remind you guys that all of these webinars are offered under the gift economy. So if you guys want to support AVO and the webinars, the workshops, there's actually, I'm leaving in 2 days for Europe for 4 months of workshops. Every weekend there's going to be a workshop in Europe. So if you guys want to support any of that work, please do so. It's much needed and appreciated. You can do that through the AVO website, so amazingveganoutreach.com. And besides that, yeah, thank you guys for all the work that you do. James, again, thank you for joining. Any last words before we cut off the YouTube video?
Yeah, I just think that it all comes with practice, and model people who you believe are doing it in a way that resonates with you, that you see as effective. Support everyone, in their activism journey, in their vegan journey. Be patient, be loving, and but also, yeah, be stern when needed. Never back down from speaking the truth, the wholehearted, honest truth. Like, speak your truth. I'm never ever saying you stop doing that. The more fully you do that, the better. But also with the goal of just helping someone grow and become a better version of themselves, and keeping the blame out of it, keeping the shame out of it, just always with the goal of lifting each other up and helping our friends and family do better. And just like they help us do better in different ways as well.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you you've inspired me. You're a great role model, I think, for a lot of activists with your positive, the positive vibes. So
seems to work, man.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you very much.
That's how I feel about you, bro. Like, you're another example of where I see it work really well. And I think, wow, like, this is very effective communication. And because of this very effective communication, people are going vegan. in ways that I see more directly than other certain ways that don't resonate as much with me, or that I see as potentially as effective as really communicating like this with people. So yeah, thanks, bro. Thanks for getting
Cool.
the good work out there, and hope, you know, with certain people it will resonate, and with others, I hope that they find their own way.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who's tuned in to YouTube. We'll see you on the next webinar. Peace.
Peace, everybody.